Is everybody ready? I'll give you another 30 seconds. If that's enough time. And in the meantime, if everybody would be so kind as to silence your cell phones, if you haven't already done so. All right, 10 seconds. Okay. Ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Captain Ron Galaviz. I'm the Chief Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police. On behalf of Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter, the entirety of the Indiana State Police, we'd like to welcome you to our museum for this morning's press conference. I'd like to welcome members of the press. Thank you for being here. Respective members of the families, we love having you here. Thank you for being here. And to everybody watching either on your cellular devices, computers, TVs, what have you, welcome. Here in a few moments, in fact, I'm going to turn this over to Glenn Fifield here in just a moment for a couple housekeeping. Restrooms are around the back. Cell phone coverage is a little scant in this room, so if you need to get up and make a phone call or receive one, please do so. Please use that back door. There will be an opportunity to hear a lot of information that's going to be provided by Sergeant Fifield, who's the Public Information Officer from our Lowell post. And you'll also be hearing from at least a handful of other individuals representing agencies involved in this, as well as a family member. So again, thank you for being here, and at this time I'm going to turn this over to Sergeant Glenn Fifield, PIO from our Lowell post.
Well, good morning and thank you for being here. We're here this morning to announce a recent development into the cold case investigation known in many circles as the I-65 killer. This case began February 21st, 1987 with the murder of Vicki Heath, who was working the night shift at the Super 8 Hotel located in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. On March 3rd, 1989, the Indiana State Police investigated 2 homicides that occurred on the same day of similar circumstances. Margaret Gill, also known as Peggy Gill, was murdered while working the night shift at the Days Inn located in Maryville, Indiana. Jean Gilbert was murdered while working the night shift at the Days Inn located in Remington, Indiana. Numerous pieces of evidence were collected and preserved to include DNA, clothing, hairs, fibers, and ballistic evidence from these 3 cases. On January 2nd, 1990, a clerk working in the Days Inn located in Columbus, Indiana, was attacked in a similar manner as the previous 3 victims. This victim was able to escape her attacker and survived. She was ultimately able to give an excellent physical description of the suspect and details of the crime. Forensic evidence was also collected and preserved from this case. She is the only known victim to have survived the vicious and brutal attacks of this killer. One of the primary factors that linked these 4 crime scenes were their proximity to I-65, and for this obvious reason, the person was responsible for these murders was dubbed the I-65 killer. As you can see from this slide above me, the evidentiary similarities and links are highlighted between the 4 cases. And we've also have this on this display next to us. The Indiana State Police Laboratory subsequently matched ballistic evidence linking the Gill and Gilbert murders. The Indiana State Police Laboratory also later matched DNA evidence linking the Heath and Gilbert murders to the Columbus, Indiana case. Indiana State Police detectives recently requested assistance from the FBI's Gang Response Investigative Team, also known as GRIT. Many investigative and scientific techniques have either improved or been created through new technology since the 1980s and 90s. One of these methods is investigative genealogy. Investigative genealogy is the use of DNA analysis in combination with traditional genealogy research and historical records to generate investigative leads for unsolved violent crime. This was an investigative step that generated a significant and important lead in this investigation. Further investigation and kinship lab testing by the Indiana State Police Lab of crime scene samples positively identified the suspect. The match was 99.9999% positive. It is this scientific breakthrough that ultimately led to the identification of the I-65 killer, Harry Edward Greenwell. Greenwell was born December 9, 1944, and died in January 2013. Greenwell had an extensive criminal history and had been in and out of prison several times, even escaping from jail on 2 separate occasions. He was known to travel frequently in the Midwest. We have put the original sketch along with photos of Greenwell and a mugshot of him into the media packet that you all have been given today. We are not displaying his photo up here today out of respect to the victims and their families, and not to glamorize him any more than he already has been or may be in the future. Investigators documented significant events in Harry Greenwell's life to include law enforcement contacts in the following timeline, and that's displayed right here. These events were gathered by review of Greenwell's criminal history, historical police reports, historical Iowa Department of Corrections paperwork, which included some self-reporting by him, newspaper archives, public records, and the conducting of interviews by detectives. As most of you know, Interstate I-65 runs from Gary, Indiana, all the way down south to Mobile, Alabama. Investigators have long believed that there is a distinct possibility that there have been murders, rapes, robberies, or assaults that have not yet been connected to this investigation. Investigators are actively working with other departments in the Midwest to determine if Greenwell was a perpetrator of other violent crimes yet to be solved. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter. Sir.
Gosh, there's so much that I would like to say, and I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time. But to the family members that are here, I'm not going to begin to try to understand or say that I understand, because none of us do. But I hope that today might bring a little bit of solace to you, to know that the animal that did this is no longer on this earth. I'm not going to say his name. I think we need to focus on the victims today. It's amazing what happens over the course of generations. There's detectives in this very room that have been involved in this in some form or another, literally for generations. And they're owed a debt of gratitude that we can never possibly repay. But you know, their effort was for you. Their effort was for you and for those that remain. I'm the luckiest guy on the planet Earth to be able to represent this profession at this level. And I'm continually amazed, even though we fuss with each other, what happens when we all come together as one for you. For you. It's amazing what happens. The message is, you might be able to hide for a while, but we're going to find you. Even if you're not here. And I think one of the most amazing pieces of this puzzle is that this team of people that are standing on the walls on the outside of this and even behind me did the work for you after he was gone. So I hope today gives you that next chapter. I hope it's going to allow you to take that next step and know that while science is continuing to evolve, the dedication from people that are standing behind me is as strong as ever. And it's amazing what happens when you put the two together. So it's a pleasure to be able to stand here with you today. And again, I'm most grateful to all of those people over the course of now generations that have stepped up and stepped out for a successful conclusion for you.
I'd like to introduce Special Agent in charge of the FBI Indianapolis office, Herbert Stapleton. Sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here today. I want to start off by saying to the families of Vicki Heath, Peggy Gill, and Jean Gilbert, we know that despite the years that have passed since these horrible events, that you have never forgotten the loss of your loved ones, and that this heinous crime is something that all of you have had to live with daily for all of these years. I know that this announcement can't take away the pain that you felt at this loss, but what we hope is that through today's information and revelation, this provides some answers that may aid you in your healing process that you go through every single day and bring you some sense of peace. To the surviving victim of this individual, I want to say thank you for your courage. I want to say thank you for having the courage and the ability in the aftermath of a vicious and brutal attack to provide assistance to law enforcement. That was critical in being able to solve this case, and it was truly a turning point in the investigation. And thank you for your continued help over the years to continue to try to identify this individual. You never gave up, and I hope that today's announcement shows that this team of law enforcement agencies never gave up either. I want to stress that these crimes didn't go unsolved for many years because of a lack of effort. It was relentless and dogged pursuit over the course of a number of years that ultimately led to this individual being identified. The investigators responsible for this tracked leads across the country and did everything that they could to identify the person responsible. Fortunately, since these crimes were committed many years ago, there have been some developments in some scientific developments. Investigative and scientific techniques have either been improved or devised that allows us, through new advances in technology, to be able to identify offenders that we wouldn't have been able to identify in the past. It's through these technological advances, and perhaps more importantly, strong collaborative partnerships among law enforcement personnel that we were able to identify this person and hopefully begin to bring closure to all those affected. I've used the word "we" many times as I speak about these events, and that's not by accident. This was a team effort. This investigation, led by the Indiana State Police and by the Elizabethtown, Kentucky Police Department, along with the Columbus, Indiana Police Department, the Maryville, Indiana Police Department, the Jasper County, Indiana Sheriff's Department, and perhaps many others along the way, was truly a team effort, and the FBI is very proud to have been able to make a contribution to this effort through our GRIT task force in Northwest Indiana, as well as through support from our Houston, Texas field office. It's really a testament to the will of the investigators from state and local police departments across this state and in others, and to the spirit of collaboration and partnerships that the FBI participates in with these highly professional agencies that we were able to, after these many years, finally solve this particular crime. Thank you again to the families. As I said at the top of this, I do hope that this announcement will bring some sense of peace and assist you as you continue through your healing process. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce Deputy Chief of Operations for the Elizabethtown Police Department, David Figgett.
First off, I don't have words that are sufficient enough to ever bring any sort of closure to any of the families here today. I thank you all for coming, but I hope the work of the group that's up here somehow, some way, brings a little bit of closure to you all. The critical part of this case was this group behind me and the folks that are behind the cameras. They have worked tirelessly to get some type of closure on this case. With regard specifically to the Elizabethtown Police Department, throughout my entire career, I've been blown away at the dedication of our entire staff. And this case really highlights the generational dedication of the Elizabethtown Police Department. Our detectives take each case personal, and they never lose faith. They never give up hope that one day their case will see closure. I just hope that the effort that this group has put in will somehow bring long overdue closure to the family and friends of not just Miss Heath, but all the victims that are represented here today. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce from the Columbus Police Department, Lieutenant Matt Harris, Public Information Officer.
Over 3 decades ago, CPD officers responded to a robbery at a Columbus hotel where the clerk was viciously assaulted. 32 years later, thanks to modern investigative techniques and the hard work of law enforcement officers past and present, this heinous crime was linked to other deadly robberies and assaults in Indiana and Kentucky. These cases illustrate the importance of seeing every investigation through to the very end. Law enforcement officers and detectives are taught to never give up and to follow where the facts lead them. However, an experienced officer will trust their instincts as well. The smallest piece of evidence is often what breaks a case wide open. Sometimes the answers do not come as quickly as we would like, but in the end, I am thankful that we are finally able to provide answers to questions that have plagued these victims and their families for so long. While we cannot bring loved ones back or erase the years of hurt and loss these families have endured, it is my hope that they are able to find comfort and healing with the developments in this investigation. Thank you.
Our final speaker is a special speaker. I'd like to introduce the daughter of Gene Wright, representing the family, the daughter of Gene Gilbert, representing the family of Gene Gilbert. Kim Gilbert Wright. Kim?
This is pretty overwhelming, so bear with me. I think some of my comments will echo those of the professionals that have just spoken to you, but some of my comments will come from the families as well. Let me first thank everyone attending today to share in this monumental development that's been long awaited by our family, the surviving victim, the families of Peggy Gill and Vicki Heath, and also friends and families of the victims who have all been on this long journey with us. Our family is extremely grateful to all of the agencies, along with the agency partnerships, as you've heard, who've committed to keeping these unsolved cases at the forefront for over 33 years and longer, and who have worked tirelessly to bring these cases to resolution for all who have suffered from these crimes. From man hours to continuous pursuit of new leads and new technology, your efforts certainly do not go unnoticed, whether they were big or whether they were small. As we've learned today, rapid developments in DNA science and in genealogy research forums, those were tremendous factors in solving these cases. And without constant scientific advancements in these areas, more time likely would have elapsed in bringing these cases to resolution. And I have faith they will factor into the resolution of many other unsolved and perhaps cold cases out there as well. We are appreciative that these methods were pursued, and also appreciative to those who took part in genealogy searches that led to the discovery of the identity of the killer in this case, were willing to participate and have their DNA in a databank that could be compared. While this news may not close the cases, or while this news might close the cases at hand officially, new chapters of healing will begin for all of us involved, and those chapters will be written differently for each of us. Closure and justice may seem apparent or obvious in these cases now, but in many ways, these concepts are only beginning to take shape for those of us who have led our lives and had our lives turned upside down at the hand of this killer. Justice specifically, and as many of you may know, I'm an attorney, so I have a unique perspective with respect to that word, but justice specifically can mean different things to different people. Some will believe the identity of the killer proves and provides justice. The case is over. While others will see justice as the moment a killer is convicted in a court of law and made to sit in prison thinking about the damage he's done to the families involved. Some others might feel anger that the person has passed and is not able to face that trial and to face the peers that would judge him in his actions. And in our case, we'll never know what the killer was thinking. We'll never learn any of the whys of his actions. And that's just where we sit today. Closure will also take on its own different and unique face for all of us, I suspect. For some of us, no closure has ever taken place, and the horrors are lived on a daily basis. For some, we've learned to move forward as we believe our loved ones would have wanted, celebrating their influence and impact on our lives. Some will relive that pain they thought they buried a long time ago and restart the entire healing process right from the beginning. I'd like to believe that whatever each of us defines as justice, or what each of us might define as closure, that we're all now able to share in the healing process, knowing the long-known attacker has now been brought out of the dark and into the light. In addition to our families, I believe his family and friends have also become victims of his crimes as well. While no one would ever think to blame them for what their husband, father, brother, or friend did, they will now likely feel judged in the court of public opinion for his deeds. And we must feel for them, as they likely never knew the person that he truly was, nor of the horrific acts that he was capable of. I'd like to take a very quick moment to ad-lib from my written remarks to tell you a little bit about the one victim that I know or knew best. That would be Jean Gilbert, who was my mother. I try not to refer to her in the past tense, as she's still here in my heart. She's still in my family's hearts. We talk about her as if she isn't gone. My brother and I were fortunate enough to have spent the last 7 months of her life living with her and experiencing the joy that she could bring to every day of our life. In past interviews that I've done for different TV outlets, I've told everyone, I remember her last words. And I think the way she expressed them to me, and the way she expressed them to my brother specifically, the "I love you, I'll see you tomorrow." I didn't see her that tomorrow, but I see her every day. I see her in me, I see her in my brother, I see her in my family. And I'm one of those people that, in mentioning earlier, maybe I don't have closure, but the peace in my life has been given to me by her. I celebrate her. I encourage everyone else to celebrate her. And I encourage everyone to celebrate the moments that we've had with my mother, with Peggy, with Vicki, and I too celebrate the life of the unnamed victim. And I thank God that she's here to have helped with the case and to have helped solve the case with her efforts, and I wish her only the best. So in closing, I'd like to thank the many who prayed for all of us over more than 33 years or so, and especially over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, family has known that there was a development for a while, and we've gotten a lot of prayers, thoughts, messages, texts, emails, letting us know that everyone was thinking of us while this announcement was forthcoming. All of you gave us strength to carry on with our lives as best as we were able during those times that we were maybe at our worst. But we're also grateful to those who reminded us that we were the best when we were at our best. Let us now begin the healing process in whatever way, shape, or form that may be for each of us. To the Gill family, to the Heath family, to the unnamed victim, and to my family, you'll always be in my thoughts. You'll always be in my prayers, and I wish only the best for you. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up to questions from the media about this case. Yes, if you could stand so we can hear you. Thank you.
I'm Hannah from Swell Studios. Have you determined that the Rochester, Minnesota victim was no longer connected with these cases?
Okay, that's a good question. Appreciate that. As I said earlier in the timeline of events, the detectives are actively investigating other leads in other areas of the country and throughout the Midwest. What you're referring to is one specific one that they are looking at, but we don't have any information on that today.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Do you know how many cases they are looking into in connection?
Other than that one that she just mentioned, I don't have any specifics on any other cases. We're anticipating that this revelation today may generate new leads on other cases.
If someone thinks there might be a connection here, who should they be reaching out to?
You could reach out to the Indiana State Police. Detective Gary Rundy was involved with that, with our department. So we would take that kind of information.
Can you share when you started the genealogy investigative portion of this and how long that took, how that process kind of worked?
I'll turn that over to Tom.
Yeah, I can't share too many details about the actual process, but the GRIT Task Force became involved in 2019, and then thereafter, that's when the investigative genealogy process started. Sometimes, the length of time in which the process may take may depend. It's going to be based on a case-by-case basis, but essentially, it began a couple of years ago.
Can you explain more about the process in general, how it works?
Unfortunately, I can't divulge too many details about the actual process, but what's been described by the Indiana State Police PIO is the basic process, taking known DNA samples and comparing them to DNA samples of the suspected killer, and then there's additional technology. There's additional techniques that have been developed that weren't available scientifically previously. That's all I can say about it.
Before the breakthroughs in the DNA, was the suspect ever on investigators or law enforcement's radar prior to that?
Not that I've been made aware of. In 2010, I believe, is when his DNA was linked through CODIS, and then from there they did not have a specific individual until, Special Agent Charles Herbert said, until mid-2019 is when we started looking at that.
I thought it had previously been reported that Margaret Gill's DNA, the DNA from Margaret Gill was a match with Dean Gilbert. Is that not correct now?
Yeah, those two, the Gilbert and Gill homicides were linked through ballistics, and so that's how it became linked with the other three, was because we knew that the DNA from the Gilbert homicide linked the other three, and with that one already being linked through the ballistics, then we were able to connect that one as well. Any other questions?
There was certainly a pattern of behavior from the suspect, according to the timeline. Was there a letdown
do you mean by a letdown? I'm not sure I
Just
understand.
in terms of, should this behavior have been recognized prior to this, with previous offenses?
Well, as you can see, he had a criminal history, but nothing like this was ever on the radar that I've been made aware of until, you know, we discovered this through DNA. Obviously, we would have loved to put him in jail long before he passed away. Unfortunately, that opportunity didn't present itself. It's not for lack of trying. These investigators, as Superintendent said, we have retired detectives here in the room that spent hundreds of hours investigating this case, looking for him, with no stone left unturned. And if we could have put him in jail before then, we definitely would have.
Did he die from natural causes?
His obituary stated that he died of cancer, but I don't have I haven't seen the death certificate to confirm that, but that was what his obituary said. Superintendent had some remarks.
Yeah, I think just quickly, I can't really help myself. To the family members, we have a real opportunity here to change the very future of policing. And the good news is we have media partners from here and all over the country, literally around the world. We all know how we can communicate today. So the message here is because of science and because of technological advances, because of experiences that you've had to endure, we are better people. We are better people. To anybody contemplating continuing to commit these kinds of crimes, you cannot hide. You cannot hide from this. And I think that the science associated with technology at the local, the state, and federal level prepares us and gives us tremendous capacity as we look into the future. So please understand, because of your experience, you made us better. I think it's important that you hear us say that. We could go back in time to one of the questions and hindsight's 20/20 and have identified who this individual was. But please don't think that was intentionally missed, because it wasn't. It was not. So I think if we don't try and see something good, we'll all go crazy. And the good is what you've allowed us to do. So from one humble guy, one humble public servant to you, please accept my sincerest thanks and gratitude in ways that I could never possibly say.
Yes.
Can you speak on his employment history with the railroad during the time the crimes happened?
I can't go into that today. That's something that may be addressed in the future, but we're not going to address any of him today.
Thank you.
Yes.
And forgive me if this has already been answered, but where was he from?
He was born in Iowa, I believe. No, where was he? Kentucky. He was born in Kentucky, but he died in Iowa.
I'm sorry, sir, can you repeat that?
He was born in Kentucky, and he died in Iowa. Okay. And I think we'll go ahead and finish the press conference with that. All right. Thank you for coming.